Good evening, Belize, and welcome to XTV's news broadcast for Monday, March 31, 2025. Making the headlines tonight, 2 police officers questioned regarding latest suspected drug plane landing. Ladyville police officer shot while conducting routine business check. Did Home Affairs CEO instruct Compol to act as a caretaker during transition? Grenade found in abandoned building north of San Pedro. And judge reserves judgment in UDP case. We take our first break and return with the news in detail. Welcome back with your news. I am Drea Espinosa. Last week, we reported on the landing of a suspected drug plane on an improvised airstrip in the Toledo district near the Guatemala border. Today, the Commissioner of Police, Chester Williams, gave an update on the investigation. He said 2 police officers were questioned concerning the plane landing, but that thus far, nothing has been found that incriminates the officers.
Last week, Thursday, after midnight, information was received of a plane that had landed in the extreme south of Belize, that is in the Toledo district. A team of police and BDF were dispatched to the area, and upon arrival, the burnt remains of the plane was found, and there was no cargo. The operation team remained in the area for a number of days conducting searches in the area with the hope of finding something. And eventually they detained 2 persons who were found not too far from the vicinity of the plane landing. And those 2 persons are currently in police custody, being questioned with a view to ascertain if they have any information that could assist the police in determining who are those behind that plane landing. We had 2 police officers who were brought in for questioning, and again, that was because of certain information that we were getting, and so it was just done with a view to see if in fact the information obtained was accurate and to see if there was any involvement of these officers. But so far, investigators have probed into this matter and we have not found anything to incriminate those 2 officers as it relates to the plane landing.
There are reports that on Friday, CEO in the Ministry of Home Affairs and New Growth Industries, Cheryl Carr, wrote a letter to Chester Williams that he should simply function as a caretaker in his post as Commissioner of Police during his transition. Today, Williams responded to the reports stating that the CEO has no such authority. He also said he wants to assume his new role as soon as possible.
I will only say that the CEO has no authority to write such letter. I've not seen it, but if that is so, she has no authority. My appointment comes from the Governor General, and so only the Governor General can alter the terms of my my authority as Commissioner of Police or the Prime Minister. So that is all I'm going to say in respect of that.
Meanwhile, last week, there were reports that the Compol had asked for a 2 to 3 month transition period to take on his new role as CEO in the Ministry of Transport, Indigenous, Constitution, and Religious Affairs. Today, Williams told us and said he is excited about his new role and has asked for the transition to be made, quote, as quick as possible.
In terms of my timeline, I have advised the Cabinet Secretary that I want to leave as quick as possible. It's a matter of the Cabinet Secretary and the Prime Minister working out my exit package, and once that is done, then I am prepared to leave. I am excited about going to take over my new role. I believe that it is going to be something good for me. It's a new opportunity for me to be able to go and apply myself with a view to see how I can continue to contribute to the safety of this country. So.
Early this morning, San Pedro police discovered a grenade in an abandoned building in the northern parts of Ambergris Caye. Commissioner of Police Chester Williams told the media that the grenade was secured and would be destroyed on the island today.
This morning, sometime after 8 a.m., a team of officers from San Pedro conducted search in an abandoned building situated north of Ambergris Caye. The search led to the discovery of a grenade, a hand grenade, inside one of the rooms. That grenade is currently at a secure location. BDF bomb expert has been contacted and should be in San Pedro anytime now to examine the grenade and to destroy it in San Pedro.
High Court Justice Tawanda Honduras has reserved his judgment in case 661 of 2024 to decide whether the Alliance for Democracy's Unity Convention of October 2024 was lawful and whether the expulsion of Tracy Panton et al. By the Moses Shine Barrow executive followed the Constitution of the United Democratic Party. The trial lasted for 4 hours. The trial unfolded in the presence of a full court. In attendance was claimant Moses Shine Barrow and defendants Tracy Panton and Philippa Griffith Bailey. While Barrow showed up alone with his counsel, Dr. Christopher Malcolm, Panton had a full court of supporters along with officials including her second deputy leader, Beverly Williams. Honorable Lee Mark Chang and UDP senators designates Patrick Faber and Sheena Pitts. The other claimants, Hugo Pat, Shari Medina, Michael Perifit, and Alberto August, did not show up for the in-person hearing. In Pat's case, however, he had attorney Estevan Pereira appear on his behalf to notify he was withdrawing his claim. Dr. Malcolm opened submissions arguing that the process of holding a convention is not ceremonial, it is substantive, and that Panton did not have the authority to issue a call for a national convention and attendant procedures as that is a role filled by the Secretary General. He therefore pointed to breaches of the Constitution that should render the Unity Convention null and void. In response, King's counsel Peter Knox, on behalf of the respondents, pointed out that there is a record of the delegates who voted and the required number was in attendance, so that can be verified. His first argument is that once the petition with the required numbers was submitted, it was mandatory to hold a convention to fulfill the rights of the delegates. Responding on the point that the AFD had someone usurp the role of the chairman, Knox said no one can block or frustrate the will of the delegates, and so when neither Chairman Michael Perifit nor his deputy, Alberto August, showed up at the convention, someone else had to be put in his place to have the convention proceed. On the point that the Secretary General was a gatekeeper, Knox argued that because she was part of the camp trying to prevent a national convention, she would not have honored her role, but the Constitution does not provide for who can fulfill the duties if the Secretary General doesn't do so.
The chairman, in this case, simply refused to give effect to the delegates' requisition. The question would be, we say, in those circumstances, the members, or someone on behalf of the members, like Mrs. Panton, can essentially take up the cudgels on their behalf and call the convention. The other side's case is essentially, no, they can't just call the convention. Perhaps they can go to court to try to get some relief from the court. To which we say no. You don't have to waste time going to court to assert your rights. You can assert your rights in the normal way, as long as you do so peacefully.
You also consider that Ms. Medina was contributing to the frustration of having a national convention?
Well, we don't say that she herself did anything, but what we do say is she was firmly in the camp of those who were refusing to do anything. I mean, and indeed, she is one of the claimants in this case. And I think it's pretty unrealistic for myself to say that, and what our submission was, that if we had asked her to send out the relevant messages and documents and things, we say the chances of her actually doing that are nil, because she was part of the camp which was not even recognising the validity of the convention. On the point about whether Mrs. Panton was entitled to call the convention, our point is simply the Constitution doesn't say one way or the other whether she could or couldn't, and therefore she could. Nothing prevented her from doing so.
When it comes to the right of the delegates, your argument is that they have a right to vote, and that right cannot be taken away from them.
Our basic point is being a delegate's a very important job. If you are a delegate, it must follow that rights given to you by the Constitution must be upheld. They're serious rights, and that is because the structure of the Constitution is what I said was a bottom-up Constitution. It starts at constituency level, and it's the constituents, and in particular the delegates of the constituents, who are a fundamental part of the party. That is why we say they are given these powerful rights to call for a national convention. Constitution, regardless of what National Party Council might say, or regardless of what the Central Executive Committee says, or the chairman. These are absolute rights. And that's why, if they were being dishonoured, it followed that Mrs. Panton was entitled to see to it that they were given effect to. That was the argument. The question then arises, how do you construe the Constitution in that position, which is a position which is not provided for expressly by the Constitution?
Barrow insists that pending the outcome of the case, the Huga-Pat interim leadership is the rightful one and that Pat had no authority to delegate leadership to Panton. We asked Barrow and Knox if the case is now merely an academic exercise, given how the general elections turned out.
I don't know what standing you still retain. I'm sure you
member of the Central Executive as former leader, previous former leader.
Okay, but so what are we? What?
And so
what
that is
your
that
final
is
objective here.
That is the problem. We have a few objectives. For those of us that would want to be Prime Minister of this country one day, or to sit in cabinet, or even to sit in the National Assembly, we have to demonstrate to the public that we adhere to the rule of law and that we will be compliant with whatever oath of office it is that we take. That is number one. Number two, I demonstrated that when the former party chairman, Michael Perfit, when he disagreed with my interpretation, because you interviewed me and you said to me straight out, why don't you hand over to Ugo? And one of the reasons I didn't want to hand over to Ugo, because I was afraid that the process would not be seen through and we would end up right back at square one. However, once the party chairman, as the authority in the party, the ultimate authority in the party, barring the MPC and the National Convention, disagreed with my position that, I continued to be leader until another leader was elected, I yielded to the party chairman, right? However, it was my hope, because I spoke to the party chairman and he had mentioned that he spoke to Ugo, and Ugo understands that, he has to maintain the interim leadership until another national convention is called. But what proceeded was Ms. Panton saying, "I never need to resign. We resign here October 20th," maintaining that she and her cabal are the central executive and the duly elected leaders, which I reject, Alberta August reject, Shari Medina reject, a majority of us reject. So nothing was solved by my resignation. And that is why we have to continue with court here.
Your ideal outcome from this is to finally prove and establish that October 20th shouldn't have been, and
that is a serious decision.
But
there are damages, there are significant damages to be had for that, which costs many of my colleagues to lose their seat, costs me to lose my seat, in my opinion. There are valid arguments to be made, and for the sake of democracy.
Well, I think in one sense they are a little bit moot, because, as I understand it, Mrs. Panton is the leader of the opposition. In practical terms, I imagine, she would say that she is, to all intents and purposes, the leader of the UDP. Right. So what's the point of this litigation? One of the questions is, or rather was, who is the leader of the UDP? There was an issue about that until the general election, but in real life there's now no issue about that particular point at all. Of course, there is still the question of costs. It might be said, well, that's still an outstanding issue, but it's not really the main issue which this litigation was, as it were, came into effect to consider. But I think it is, and I think there is something to be said for the point that the question of who was the leader is academic, because we all now know who is the leader.
In respect of the second matter of expulsion being argued, Knox pointed to the UDP constitution not being followed, and therefore, he says, the principles of natural justice were violated. The argument is that Panton, Beverly Williams, Patrick Faber, and John Saldivar were never told of the charges against them or given an opportunity to defend themselves. Faber explained today.
Somebody would have had to put something in writing. And we all know that this came because we were very outspoken about the injustices that we felt were happening within the party structure. And so somebody would have had to put pen to paper and make a complaint to the central executive. The central executive would then need to determine whether this was something valid, send it to the ethics committee, and then the ethics committee go through the process, which, by the way, is where due process and natural justice comes into play. You cannot expel somebody without giving them a chance to speak up for themselves. And then, of course, there is the right to appeal, even after the ethics committee pronounces you as expelled or suspended or whatever other penalty it can met out. You have a right then to appeal to the NPC, which was never afforded to us. So that is how you know, again, that the process was flawed.
Just before midnight last night, police officers responded to a report of a man with a firearm at Fire Nightclub, previously Eruption Nightclub in Ladyville. When police arrived and approached the man, he fired several shots at Corporal Manuel Chobe. The man, who has since been identified as Stanley Flowers of Crooked Tree, then fled on a motorcycle. Sandhill police were able to intercept the man, Flowers, and detained him. Today, the Commissioner of Police, Chester Williams, gave an update on the incident and Chobe's health.
Police received information of a male person inside Eruption Nightclub compound who was armed with a firearm. Based on that, a team of police officers, Corporal Chobe and another police, went to the area, and upon entering the compound, they saw the individual fitting the description as was related to them. They approached the individual, and he took out a firearm and fired multiple shots at the vehicle. The police were able to alight the vehicle, and upon approaching him, he fired shots at Corporal Chobe, hitting him 4 times. Chobe was rushed to the hospital, and I must say that he has been treated and released. He is in good health and good spirit at this time. The individual, after having shot Corporal Chobe, jumped on a motorcycle and made his way towards the Sandhill area. The Sandhill police was notified, and they proceeded towards Belize City with a view to see if they would be able to apprehend the individual. And again, they encountered him on the highway, and upon seeing the police mobile, he fired multiple shots at the police mobile, causing severe damages to that vehicle. The police were able to knock him down with the vehicle off his motorcycle, and he was eventually detained, and a firearm, a 9mm pistol, was found on his person. So he was also taken to the hospital for treatment and has also been treated and released, and is now in custody of the police awaiting charges.
After the break, separate shootings in Belize City claims 2 lives. Stay with us.
Fritón, donde estás mejor vivo que muerto. Farmacia Fritón, teléfono 22 32 87 6.
Today, we received reports that the Tracy Panton, executive of the UDP, is calling a National Party Council meeting on April 5th. And so we asked Panton about the logic of holding such a meeting without the case having been decided. The understanding is that a date is to be set for a national convention.
How are you feeling after today's trial?
I think that this is an...
I understand that the party is moving forward to call an NPC meeting, and what follows after that is going to be a national convention. Do you wait or hold off until the judge has ruled on this matter?
It's very important for the National Party Council to meet, for the family, the UDP wider family to meet, so we can bring them up to speed as to where things are, and we can also have a plan on a way forward. I am not a dictator. There is no dictatorship in my leadership, and so consultation with members of the NPC is of paramount importance to me.
How do you view the fact that in our interview just now, notwithstanding everything that has happened, the fact that Mr. Ugopat has thrown his support behind you, Mr. Barrow is saying that he didn't have the authority to delegate leadership. So they're still holding on to this idea that they are the true UDP, yet to be decided by the judge. So it continues this chaos.
Well, who is causing the chaos is the question. And how could a former era rep and a former party leader and the former leader of the opposition in the House determine what an elected official will do or say? Hugo Pat has his own prerogative to determine what he believes is right to move this party forward, and he has said that loudly and clearly and boldly to the public. And he said it today in court by asking for his name to be removed as a claimant to this case.
The Belize Sugarcane Farmers Association, BSCFA, has asked to meet with the Prime Minister along with Agriculture Minister Jose Mai and Minister of State Dr. Osman Martinez, who is now responsible for the day-to-day oversight of the sugar industry after Mai was stripped of the portfolio. In a release issued Saturday, the BSCFA reacts to the Prime Minister's comments about their March 25th letter to him, stating that while they respect the position of the Prime Minister and the immense responsibilities he carries, the concerns they raised are not personal. The association writes that those concerns, quote, reflect the serious concerns of our farmers whom we represent, particularly in relation to the alignment with multinational interests to the extent of impact to our highest levels of parliament. It's crucial for all voices, regardless of status, to contribute to the national dialogue, especially when it concerns the well-being of the people we serve, end quote. They added, quote, as the leader of our country, our Prime Minister's perspective is invaluable, but so too is the feedback and criticism that can guide us towards actions that safeguard the livelihood of our farmers. Open dialogue and understanding rather than dismissal will ensure that we all move forward together for the betterment of our farmers, industry, and country, end quote. The BSCFA has proposed a meeting date of Friday, April 4th, or at the earliest convenience of the officials. In police news this morning, just before 11, police officers quickly responded to reports of a shooting on Iguana Street Extension in Belize City. One young man was shot to the head and he was rushed to the KHMH bleeding profusely. He was identified as Kobe Ledlin. He died moments after being shot. Police's quick response led to the detention of several individuals for questioning. Meanwhile, a Belize City resident identified as 34-year-old fisherman Elvis Aldana was gunned down Saturday night in the Old Capitol. Reports are that Aldana was at a mechanic shop at the corner of Electric Avenue and McKay Boulevard in the St. Martin de Porres when he was targeted by a lone gunman. Residents said they heard at least 3 gunshots. ACP Gilberto Romero told the media today that police so far have not identified a motive.
On Saturday, police visited Electric Avenue where a report came in that there was a shooting incident. Upon arrival, police saw the lifeless body of Elvis Aldana with multiple gunshot wounds. Information received that Aldana was in a yard along with several persons when gunshots were heard, and he received the fatal injuries. The police arrived and only found Aldana at the area. An investigation is being carried out into this murder.
A fatal stabbing was reported in Pomona, Stan Creek on Sunday. Reports are that Jason Sharp and his 20-year-old stepson, Santiago Garcia, went to make a purchase at the residence of Kenroy Smith. An argument broke out and later turned violent, after which Smith stabbed both Sharp and Garcia. The Commissioner of Police, Chester Williams, said police believe Smith acted in self-defense. ACP Gilberto Romero shared more information on the incident.
Okay, on Sunday, police responded to a report of a stabbing at the Southern Regional Hospital. Upon arrival, they saw the lifeless body of Santiago Garcia with stab wounds. Shortly thereafter, two other persons arrived for treatment, namely Jason Sharp and Kenroy Smith. Information received is that Santiago Garcia and Jason Sharp went to the residence of Smith to purchase cannabis. There was an altercation between them. A fight started, at which point Smith took out a knife and inflicted the injuries to both persons. An investigation is being carried out, and this file will be sent to the DPP for directives.
After the break, CARICOM chair writes Trump over worrying port fee levy. Stay tuned.
20 years ago, receive real-time status updates.
A teenager tragically lost his life after going for a swim moments after being baptized. Reports are that a small congregation from the Queen Street Baptist Church had gone to conduct the baptismal ceremony in Rockville off the George Price Highway Saturday. Moments after, several people from the group went for a swim, but they soon realized that 16-year-old Caden Stewart had gone underwater and did not resurface. Searches were conducted and his body was subsequently retrieved from the river. Caden was a student at EP York High School. ACP Hilberto Romero shared what the police investigation has revealed thus far.
Okay, on Saturday, police responded to a report of a jungle at Crazy Rock. Upon arrival, they saw the lifeless body of Caden Stewart, 16 years. Information that he was along with several other persons swimming. When he went under the water and did not resurface, persons in the area began to search and found his body. No signs of injuries were observed on the body. He was taken to the morgue awaiting a post-mortem examination.
Is it directly connected to a baptism?
Yes, they had a baptism prior to they going swimming in that area.
Barbados Prime Minister Mia Mottley, who is the current chairperson of CARICOM, has written to U.S. President Donald Trump asking for the Caribbean to be exempt from a proposal U.S. levy on Chinese-built ships. The proposal is part of Trump's port fee plan to charge operators anywhere between $500,000 to $1 million US per port call in the U.S. if they have any Chinese-made vessel in their fleet. PM Mottley says the tax could disrupt regional commerce, inflate import costs, and destabilize supply chains. The matter was also discussed last week when U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio visited Jamaica. Also last week, the Atlantic Council and Tropical Shipping met with CARICOM ambassadors and the CARICOM private sector organization CPSO in Washington, this to discuss the issue. The CEO of CPSO, Dr. Patrick Antoine, said the impact for the Caribbean could be far worse than the disruptions occasioned by COVID-19 when shipping costs exponentially increased because the increases in this case could be in place for some time. He noted that most sectors rely on companies operating at least one Chinese-built vessel, which could mean that $1 million fine could apply per port call. One shipping agency, Seaboard Marina, has already warned that the proposed fee could put them out of business as they would stare down taxes of $3.6 billion per year or $69 million per week. Their other options would be passing the increased cost to customers and or radically changing how they do business. Motley is making the point that because our trade structures are served primarily by small container ships operated by U.S.-based firms in Florida, they would also stand to be impacted. The Ministry of Infrastructure Development and Housing has called out the theft of road construction material. In a video the ministry shared on social media Sunday, several people are seen with buckets and shovels removing material from the shoulder of the road on the Chan Pine Ridge Road in Orange Walk. The ministry states, quote, this will undermine the integrity of the newly built road and create serious problems for the community. Please stop, end quote. We note that this kind of theft is a common occurrence. And a second Haitian police officer deployed under the UN-backed Haitian Multinational Security Support Mission, MSS, has been killed in the Caribbean country. Reports are that Benedict Kabiru was killed last week in an ambush by suspected gang members that have actually been determined to be parliamentary groups resourced with weapons smuggled from the U.S. A message from Haiti's Presidential Transitional Council, CPT, read, quote, This valiant policeman committed to the side of the Haitian forces to fight against insecurity has made the ultimate sacrifice for a better future, end quote. Kenyan police officers first reached Haiti in June last year to lead the mission. A first Kenyan police officer was killed in February this year. Notably, while funding from the U.S. for the mission held in a UN trust is on hold, the United States continues to provide direct funding for the mission through the State Department. On Tuesday evening, Kenyan President William Ruto and U.S. State Secretary Marco Rubio reaffirmed their commitment to the mission. Around 800 Kenyan police officers are deployed in Haiti, along with members of security forces from El Salvador, Jamaica, Bahamas, Guatemala, and other countries. Belize has 2 senior BDF officers on the ground in Haiti. And with that, we have come to the end of our newscast. A repeat can be viewed on the station later tonight at 9 and again tomorrow at midday. Join us again tomorrow for another news broadcast. I am Drea Espinosa. Have a safe and enjoyable evening.